Welcome back, baseball fans. The 1973-76 World Series preview. The LA Dodgers and the Chicago White Sox. They were the number 2 seeds in their leagues. There was the upset of the number 1 seed Cincinnati Reds and the number 1 seed Baltimore Orioles. That opened the door for these teams to get to the World Series. They did it pretty convincingly. Dodgers beat the Braves 4-2. White Sox beat Baltimore 4-1. Let's take a deep dive. We're going to start with the Dodgers, the road team. And we have their season here. Dodgers opened up, beat the Cardinals 3-2. They beat the Padres 4-1. They lost the interleague battle to Seattle 2-1. The only loss before the All-Star break. They beat Florida Marlins 3-1. You're seeing the last place schedule because they were so bad a year ago. We'll see more of that in a bit. They beat the Giants 4-1 and the Astros 4-3 at the All-Star break. They were in first place. And then when the tournament began, they had opportunity to play the Giants again. And when they did, they beat the Giants again and seemed to have total control over the division with a 5-game lead. However, they made it interesting because in the next round of the tournament, the Dodgers did an unexpected fall against Arizona. They lost 5 of 6. Normally, when you start losing a series like this, it's over. But the reason this thing kept going is because Arizona was so bad, they had to win 6 straight. So it was just you could say it's an unfortunate matchup if you are in a losing streak, and that's what the Dodgers were. They should have just dusted the guys 1-0. They could not do it. They dropped 5 of 6, and that seemed to, on paper, look like that the Dodgers weren't any good, but you just saw they were very good. They just had this disastrous series in which Arizona caught everything. They got like 6, 8, 10 runs a game early on in that. So that put them back to just 6 over 500 in distance for the Giants. And the Dodgers had to sit and wait in first place and see if the Giants were going to catch them, as the Giants were going to play in the third round of the tournament. Giants got eliminated. While that was happening, Philadelphia fell out of first place. All that good news meant that even after the Dodgers stumbled, they still had the number 2 seed of the National League. So literally, they stumbled, Philly stumbled, Giants stumbled, Mets, Braves rose but didn't rise enough to get a number 2 seed. Reds won, Dodgers 2. Mets win that division. Expansion team, Arizona, and of course the wild card Mets and the wild card Pirates. In the divisional round, the Dodgers played what is arguably easily the best series of these. Mets-Dodgers classic series. Dodgers win in 7 games, 4-3, on a walk-off solo homer by Steve Garvey in the bottom of the 9th inning. What a great series that was. And in the league championship series, they outlasted Atlanta 4-2. Atlanta didn't hit nearly enough. They had plenty of home runs, but they didn't reach with singles or walks ahead of those homers. They're mostly solo shots, so they didn't do a lot of damage. And the Dodgers kept getting their hits, and the Dodgers kept capitalizing on Atlanta blunders defensively. And now we'll take a look at the White Sox. Okay, the White Sox, they started the season slow. They lost 3 out of 4 to Baltimore. They played an interleague battle against Las Vegas, beat them 2 straight. Then they lost 3 out of 4 to the Tigers, 2 first-place teams a year ago. Their peers, they lost. They were 2-6. They beat the Brewers in their division 4-3. They lost to a very game Minnesota team 4-3, in which the Twins had home field advantage, and all 7 games were won by the home team. But then they beat Kansas City 4-1. So it isn't certainly glamorous, as their skins were an interleague battle versus Las Vegas, the Brewers, and the Royals, who had a horrible year. They literally split 6 series. But then everything changed in the postseason tournament. This is when they just simplified things, basically. and they caught fire. They decided not to keep juggling parts and trying to find the hot bat in this. They just stayed with what they perceived to be their best talented lineup and said, this is us. We're going to leave it alone, and if we die, we die. If we win, we win, and it's been winning. Rematch against those Twins. They beat them 5-2. Put them in first with a small margin. While that was happening, the Brewers would get eliminated. The Twins would win, but not catch the White Sox, so the Twins had to play in the wild card round, and when they did, the Twins lost in the wild card round to Oakland. So White Sox get a division win. Meanwhile, Oakland had a lousy year. They couldn't get a number 2 seed. And the Tigers folded up against Baltimore. They couldn't get a number 2 seed, so the White Sox were opportunistic. They were in the same boat of the Dodgers. They literally just sat and watched other teams flail away and ended up with a number 2 seed. As you can see in the battle of top seeds, the White Sox beat Oakland 3-2. That put them at 5 over 500. Oakland was 19-17. And the only other challenger was the Ohio players. They couldn't quite catch in the round of 3, Ohio won, but they still lost a tiebreaker to the White Sox by percentage points between the number 2 and number 3 seed. That gave Ohio a rematch against Detroit, and they eliminated Detroit. So that put Ohio versus the White Sox. And this is a very opportunistic matchup for the White Sox. That's just how it fell. The Ohio players were just as hot as the White Sox. But in the in the divisional round, no match. The White Sox continued their heat wave, 4-0. So they're on a hot run here. Before the All-Star break, they beat Kansas City 4-1. Then they beat the Twins 5-2. That makes them 9-3. Beat Oakland 12-5. They're 16-5 at this point, since just before the All-Star break. And then, of course, dusting Baltimore. They're 20-6. That's the burner the White Sox have been on. It's several months. And the thing about the White Sox is stability. They're keeping everything simple. They got an answer for everything. Problem comes up, that's the solution. Just like that. They know what to do. They don't have to hem and haw. They don't have to guess weird strategies. They've been in so many long series. Here's another thing. They've played so many games. They've been in so many long series. They literally know what problems are going to happen, and they faced them previously. So with that, we'll take a look at the pitching rotations. Okay, here are the pitching rotations for the series. So the ends of the League Championship Series, there was a day off, and then there was 4, 5, 6, and 7 if necessary. White Sox did get two days off. That's not enough room for Bart Johnson to start Game 1. And they elect to go with Jim Cott versus Wilbur Wood. And the reason is because Wilbur Wood, later on in this, will pitch on 2 days rest. So they want Jim Cott in Game 1. Bart Johnson on his normal rest in Game 2, then Wilbur Wood, then Cott on 3 days rest. Then they have to go to Jerry Bell to Game 5. There's no way to avoid that, the way the days are staggered. Then Wilbur Wood comes back on 2 days rest on Game 6. And then after a day off in Game 7, they have the choice of Bart Johnson or Jim Cott, or both. Both guys will be ready to pitch in Game 7. A righty and a lefty. They could go back-to-back, forcing the Dodgers to use a weak bench. So that's the strategy the White Sox will employ. As for the Dodgers, Anthony Messersmith shut out the Braves in Game 6, giving them 1 day off. Don Sutton will come back on his regular rest, and he's the guy who benefits the most. World Series is set up with days off between Games 1 and 2, 6 and 7, so that the ace can pitch Games 1, 4, and 7, as we often see in a World Series. In the case of the White Sox, they just have better talent between the 3 starters. They don't really need one guy to pitch 3 times. They want Johnson to pitch twice, taking one of Wilbur Wood's starts. But not the case for the Dodgers. Technically, Messersmith has been the better pitcher down the stretch, but Messersmith can't pitch Game 1. So Sutton is in Game 1. Messersmith in Game 2, Tommy John in Game 3, and then Sutton again. Same situation, Game 5, you're going to need your number 4 starter. It's Joe Decker. Messersmith again on 3 days rest, and Sutton in a Game 7. Sutton caught twice, and then Sutton, Bart Johnson, or caught. The White Sox can decide based on how it happens the first 2 times. You got Bart Johnson, Messersmith in 2. That'll be a thriller. And Wilbur Wood will face Tommy John in a battle of lefties, and Wilbur Wood faces Andy Messersmith. A lot of cross matchups. The only repeat matchup is Cott Sutton in Game 4. And if the series, let's say it's 2-2, very competitive series, because the teams are very similar records, it means that Game 5 could be the bullpen game. It's Jerry Bell, Joe Decker. Unknowns. Jerry Bell was a Brewer free agent. Decker was a Twin free agent. And here they are against each other in a Game 5. Both teams can empty their bullpens, and they are deep. I mean, you got Mike Marshall, the deepest, and a lefty Jim Brewer, and you got Gossage. If Marshall's 1, Gossage is 1A, or if Gossage is 1, Marshall's 1A. And Forster, the lefty, setting them up. So both teams go very deep in the bullpen. This is a very great pitching matchup set up. So with that, now let's take a look at the starting lineups for Game 1 of the World Series. Okay, Game 1 lineups. And we're going to just read the stats off the cards because we can look at stats after this. Game 1, Davey Lopes will lead off at second base. In 1973, he hit .275 in a full season as a ace-stealer. Batting second, another ace-stealer, Bill Buckner. In left field, a 1 in left. Would rather play first. We'll have to find a new franchise to play for to do that with Steve Garvey present. Batting third, your 1974 National League MVP, Steve Garvey, had the walk-off homer against the Mets. Hit .312 in 1974. The toy cannon, Jim Wynn, comes over from Houston, brings 32 homers, 108 walks, and a .271 average. He gets to be the DH. Batting fifth, a 1975 Ron Say, his best year in the timeline, .283 with 25 home runs. Good, solid defense at third as a 2. Batting sixth, full-time catcher Steve Yeager, 1-3 arm, can hit both ways, so no reason to have him in a platoon. He gets most of the starts with a reserve catcher on the roster. .266, 12 home runs. Against the lefty, Willie Davis bats seventh. Has a ton of extra base hits versus righties. He hit .285, 29 doubles, 9 triples, 16 home runs, 600 plate appearances for Willie. Still a 1 in center field. He would have been traded for Mike Marshall, their teammates. Batting eighth, we can call this Bill Russell's best year. He's a shortstop 2 in 1976, hitting .274. Great bat handler, great base runner. And they give him power versus righties. Interesting. Hits better versus lefties. And batting ninth, in right field, Willie Crawford gets a start because it's a road game. They want his defense out there, even though he doesn't hit lefties very well. Crushes righties. He's a .295 hitter with 14 home runs in 1973. On the bench, the Dodgers have Frank Baker, utility infielder, who hit .190. He's a left-handed bat, multiple positions. Biff Pocoroba, the backup to Steve Yeager, .255 bat and a switch hitter. And Horace Clark, another switch hitter, a second baseman, pretty balanced, a symmetrical split, hitting .263. He would have played a full season with the Yankees, but he was put on waivers, and the Dodgers selected him as a part-time player instead of an everyday player. Starting today for the Dodgers is Don Sutton. 73, he was 18-10 with a .243 ERA in 256 innings. And then available in the bullpen, we'll just go to the bullpen since we had the starter. Stan Wall, first lefty long man, 2.2, 360 ERA in 1976. Charlie Huff, 1975, 295 ERA, 61 innings. Then we have Jim Brewer, 6-8 with ERA of 3 in 1973. And Mike Marshall, 208 innings, incredibly, in 1974. And he has been used a ton this year, though not enough to make up that quantity of innings he would have had normally. Now the White Sox. Their lineup. Leading off at second base is George Orta, a .316 hitter in 1974 and 600 plate appearances with 10 home runs. Batting second, you got a switch-hitting free agent catcher Bob Stinson, was with the Expos in 1973, hit .261. He's a part-time player with walks and power on both sides. Batting third, Dick Allen, coming off the MVP season in 72. He was putting up almost identical numbers. An injury shortened his season to 283 plate appearances. Batting fourth, Bill Melton. Been steady ever since they put him in the cleanup spot. 1973, he had 20 home runs and a .276 average. Full-time third base everyday player Bill Melton. Batting fifth, the five-tool Ken Henderson in center field. Switch hitter, 2-2. Can steal bases, run the bases, can throw, hit extra base hits. He hit .292 with 20 homers in 1974. Batting sixth, the rookie player. Arguably up for Rookie of the Year is Lamar Johnson. 1976, he hit .320 in 230 plate appearances. Brings you a great batting average and power. Doesn't play defense very well or run bases very well, though. Batting seventh, the right fielder is Buddy Bradford. Kind of unique platoon where he crushes righties, not that good versus lefties. Just a .238 average, but it's opportunistic to play versus righties more frequently. Good defense as well. Batting eighth, first baseman, Talkin' Tony Muser. Muser at .285. They gave him full-time power with just 4 home runs and 360 plate appearances. Lefties and righties, he doesn't mind, and he's a good, slick fielding first baseman. Batting ninth, your shortstop, is Bucky Dent. Great defense, and that's the reason why they made him a full-time shortstop and let Louis Aparicio go in the offseason. He's a .216 at short, hit .264 in 638 plate appearances. Now on the White Sox bench, these guys have all been valuable. Brian Downing, -1 arm catcher, hit .240, but 76 walks and 420 plate appearances. I'll get that on base close to .360. Glenn Beckert, cut by the Cubs, signed off waivers by the Southsiders in Chicago. .255 average. He's still good defensively. .312, good bat handler. Bunting, hitting, and running. And Bob Coluccio is the defensive replacement for Lamar Johnson in left field. He's a -2 E5 and hits lefties better than righties. A .202 average. All of that is against the left-handers. It's a 50-50 split. It's about 270 versus lefties and 170 versus righties. Your starting pitcher, Jim Cott, acquired from the Twins in the offseason, and the move paid off. He started slow, finished hot. 21-game winner for the White Sox in 74 and 277 innings with a .292 ERA. And if they go to the bullpen, they got Stan Bonson. He actually was in the rotation a year ago. He actually was put on waivers, but they brought him back. Nobody claimed him, and they brought him back to go to the bullpen with his 1976 card as a member of the Oakland A's. Now he's a reliever with a .334 ERA in 143 innings. The story of the bullpen might be this guy, Mike Garman. He was a Cardinal in 74 with a .263 ERA in 82 innings. Relief 3. Mike Garman, of course, has not given up a run this year, an earned run this year. Next, Terry Forster. 74, lefty out of the pen, .363 ERA in 134 innings. Again, he bears down versus lefties, just kind of ordinary versus righties, but that's okay for this team, as they have their last guy in the pen, Rich Gossage. 75, it all came together. The first time we had Gossage is this card. He had been in the league prior, but not good enough to make He had been a Major League Baseball player, but not good enough to be in our league. 9-8 with a 1.84 ERA and 142 innings, which is 60-some innings less than Mike Marshall, which is stunning. The two best closers in the sport obviously are going to be impactful. A blown save by either will probably cost the series, you could consider. And with that, we're going to take a look at the stats. Okay, we're going to start by looking at the Dodgers stats from a year ago. Like I said, they were in last place. They were 13-17. 258, 394, not good enough. Buckner hit 317, which is nice. Crawford. The struggles, Davey Lopes, Bill Russell in the middle of the diamond, couldn't hit anything. Yeager and Garvey, just ordinary. Ordinary offense, certainly not enough home runs. 5 led the club. This team scored just 118 runs in 30 games while giving up 127. Don Sutton was the all-star. The poor guy was 3-6 with 8 complete games, but he had a sparkling 1.84 ERA and 82-cent WHIP. With a 72 card, Jim Brewer dominant with his 72 card, following him up. Most of the other pitchers were pretty good, except for the disaster of Tommy John. Can't figure that one out. 26 and a third innings, just getting blasted to an 11.28 ERA. Between him and Osteen, that will pretty much cost you any chance of getting to 500 or even the playoffs. So what happened? A year later, well, Crawford overperforming with his card slightly. Buckner right on cue. Garvey, acceptable. Bill Russell, yep. Ron Say. You see, they're all sort of doing what they should be doing, finally, or overachieving. Moreover, look at the homer total. We've got 44 homers now. We got 10 for Jim Wynn, 7 for Say, 8 for Garvey. Look at the guys with 20 RBIs. 24, 22, 22, 22. 31 for Jim Wynn. Very steady. Very steady throughout this lineup that's now hitting 270. And even Jim Wynn had a disappointing 202 average, but he led the club in homer and RBI. So he made his impact. 3 stolen bases for him as well. And it was a half dozen Dodgers who would steal bases, with Buckner leading the way with 13. Davey Lopes had just 4. You can make a case for if you had a most valuable offensive player, it'd be tough. You could look at the 67 hits for Garvey and Buckner. You could look at the 31 RBI and homers for Wynn. You could look at Willie Crawford overachieving. Now the pitching. Andy Messersmith caught up to Don Sutton. They both won 9 games, but Messersmith sparkled down the stretch, and Sutton kind of faded down the stretch, but he still pitched pretty well his last couple times out. 12 complete games between them, which explains why Marshall cannot get to that lofty innings pitch total we conceived. Tommy John got another complete game. That probably could have been a Marshall outing. So Marshall, well, 6-2, 12 saves, and actually that 3.46 ERA is a little bloated because he was left in a game and got lit up for like 6 runs in 2 innings, just to eat up innings, as we like to say, and that ruined his year-to-date earned run average. Jim Brewer is not the pitcher he once was. He's still decent as a setup guy. The bullpen, Huff and Wall, are largely untested. Joe Decker, the number 4 starter, not that good, with a 7.46 ERA, and Tommy John in 2 years hasn't done much for the Dodgers. So with that, now we'll take a look at the Chicago White Sox. Okay, here's the White Sox stats from a year ago, going 30-21, losing to Oakland in the League Championship Series. Offense, Carlos May, his brilliant 72 year, hitting .313. Orta under the 300 mark. Dick Allen just .259 with the 10 homers, and 41 RBIs is nice. Average is a little bit low side. On base is 100 points above, so they walked him a lot, you'd think. Other than that, it's a .259 hitting team right down the middle there with Melton and Muser. Aparicio underneath. You could see why they might want to let him go. Ken Henderson really disappointed. And the catching platoon was really disappointing with Stinson and Downing a year ago. 238 runs scored, 201 given up. Give credit to the great pitching staff. Gossage, all-star, 10 saves, 74-cent ERA, a 110 whip, and 36 in the third inning, striking out 52. Wilbur Wood with his brilliant 72 card. 12 complete games, but he was 9-8 as his team was up and down. But he threw 144 innings. Bart Johnson showed a lot of promise, but Tom Bradley and Stan Bonson did not help his team much at all. They were just 6-8 combined. And look at Mike Garman. He was actually awful a year ago after being so brilliant this year. But the three guys in the bullpen, Dave Lemons, nice contribution there, 28 innings, and Terry Forster. Gossage, Lemons, and Forster, they had a really good bullpen a year ago. Probably even better than this year. But they needed it a year ago. The starting pitching has emerged in 2025. Let's take a look at the present stats now. So the batting average is up to 272. Now you got Orta overachieving way up there at 361, and Lamar Johnson even overachieving. Muser, very good. Henderson is matching his batting average. Look at Bucky Dent up there. Stinson is contributing. Dick Allen's up to 270 with 11 and 42. So he's improved his batting average a little bit, plus he's got hot recently. Brian Downey's gotten better. Bill Melton has slightly dropped a tiny bit. Becker, you don't really need him or Coluccio that much. They're just defensive replacements. Really, Buddy Bradford's the only guy disappointing at 202. But he's got great defense in the outfield, has 5 homers, and give the guy 27 RBIs. That's more than the cleanup hitter, Bill Melton. So that's how the offense goes. Bullpen, Gossage again, 13 saves, but he's been victim of 4 losses this year. They happened early in the year as they were figuring themselves out. Forster also 2 losses. So that's 1-6 between the 2 most dependable relievers. And they probably should be using Mike Garman even more. Mike Garman has no decisions this year. 23 1/3 earned runless innings. 0-0-0, 111 whip. 4th guy in the pen, Stan Bonson. He's doing well. So you see the best pitcher has been Bart Johnson in 84 innings, a 2.87 ERA, and 5-1. And Wilbur Wood is up to 11-7, though he's not really dominating when he's pitching. He's given up his 3.73 runs a game, but his team is supporting him. And Jim Cott has a nice 8-3 record. He was knocked around in the beginning of the year, and he's gotten much better since, brought the ERA down to 4.29. He'll have to start game 1. So you have Cott and Sutton in a game 1, where both pitchers are a little bit off from a year ago. And that should be an interesting game 1. The number 4 starter for this team, Jerry Bell's been very capable. 32 2/3 innings, less than the closer, Rich Gossage, oddly enough. Winning record 4-2, also a good 3.31 ERA, better than his card would indicate. Team ERA of 3.32. Would you guess the White Sox team ERA would be better than the Dodgers team ERA? That seems a little surprising. Dodgers is 3.59, the White Sox is 3.32. So with that, we'll call that a wrap for your World Series preview. It'll begin next week. We'll have each game broadcasted. Opening up in Comiskey Park, the LA Dodgers at the Chicago White Sox. Should be a lot of fun. We'll see you next week for the World Series. Thanks for tuning in.